for the Hooksett Library. To introduce our guest now. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for coming out, everyone. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, I just want to mention a couple more things coming up at the library that you might be interested in. We have a gardening series starting on Thursday, May 2nd, with a program on composting basics. And then we have topics throughout the summer that have to do with gardening. There's a bookmark in the back of the room there on the table near the refreshments if you'd like to grab one and put that on your refrigerator so you don't miss any of those. In 2 weeks, we have a really interesting program coming up about bicycling across the world. There's a gentleman from Reading, Massachusetts who has done this. And he's going to come and share a slideshow and all of his stories from biking all the way around the world. So that should be a really interesting program. That's May 9th at 6:30 here at the library. As Jim mentioned, this program is sponsored by the Humanities Council, and it's co-sponsored by the library and the Historical Society. If you can take a minute to fill out the evaluation that you found at some point tonight and drop it in that colorful shoebox there on the table, it would really be appreciated by the Humanities Council and by us. It helps them ensure that they have great programs going on, and it's a wonderful service that they provide to the state. So with that, I'll talk about our presenter tonight. We have with us Jeff Warner. This is Jeff's second visit to the library. He was so fantastic the first time that we were eager to have him back. Tonight he'll be presenting Music in My Pockets, Family Fun and Folk Music. So this should be fun for all ages and everyone that's here. I think this is going to be a good time. Jeff connects 21st century audiences with the music and everyday lives of 19th century people. He accompanies his songs on concertina. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
All right. Banjo, guitar, and several pocket instruments, such as bones and Jew's harp. He is a folklorist and community scholar for the New Hampshire Council on the Arts and was named a 2007 State Arts Council Fellow. And he has toured nationally for the Smithsonian Institution and has recorded for Flying Fish, Rounder Records, and other labels. So thank you for coming, Jeff, to share your time and expertise with us this evening. And I'll turn it over to you.
While you were sitting around, I was playing my concertina, and Matt said correctly. This invented about 1830. It's in the accordion family. And the way you play it is you push a button, and I can prove that. You push a button for me. See? Well, you got to try another one. Two different notes. It's great. You don't want to push it. All you got to do is figure out which button to push, and you're cooking with gas. But I don't want to play that right now.
How old are you?
This instrument itself, 1910. Yeah, I have another one too. This is about 1920, and is, in fact, the cello of the instrument, of the family. First one I got, I love it to death. When Charles Wheatstone, who was the inventor of this, when he sat down to make it, he was really trying to make like a quartet of, classical music, and he wanted classical music played on it. So he made a big bass one, and he made a viola one, and a treble. Nice stuff. My banjo. When I was a kid, this is what I did just to pass the time away. I'd look all around till I found a doodle hole, then I'd say, doodle doodle doodle, bug bug bug, doodle doodle doodle, bug bug bug, doodle bug, come out and look all around, doodle back in the ground. So, I do old-time American songs. Sometimes I talk a little bit about the history behind the song and also the people whence it came. But a few years ago, the Humanities Council said, how'd you like to do a show that might appeal to kids? Because we got to get some kids out. Got to get them to historical societies, got to get them to libraries, got to get them to church socials, got to do that. I said, sure, I can do that. Put together a program. Still don't get the kids, but nonetheless, we're going to do what I have found to be of interest to kids. So if that doesn't work, you know, got coffee over there, got pictures to look at, books to read, stuff like that. So that means old-time songs that had choruses that kids would sing along with. This is one of my simplest and one of my favorite. You've all known the phrase, ladybug fly away home, your house is on fire, your children will burn. My mother used to say that to me. In England they call them ladybirds. And the kids down south, they talk to doodlebugs, which are really antlions. Talk to doodlebugs and they say that same thing. You can look it up in Tom Sawyer. He talks to a doodlebug right there on the ground. Maybe he sang in this song. I say doodle, doodle, doodle. You say bug, bug, bug. Don't get embarrassed. Doodle, doodle, doodle.
Bug, bug, bug.
When I was a kid, this is what I did just to pass the time away. I look all around till I found a doodle hole and I'd say, doodle, 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 bug, 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 doodle, 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 bug, 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 doodle, bug, come out, look all around, doodle, back in the ground. I don't know why to a doodle I'd lie, so this is what I'd say. House is on fire, your children will burn, doodle, fly up this way. Doodle, 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 bug, 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 doodle, 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 bug, 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 doodle, bug, come out and look all around, doodle, back in the ground. Now that I'm grown, I wish I did own a doodle piece of ground. I'd get up each day with a doodle I'd play, happiness would have found. Doodle, 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 bug, 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 doodle, 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 bug, 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 doodle, bug, come out and look all around, doodle, back in the ground. When I was a kid, this is what I did just to pass the time away. I'd look all around till I found a doodle hole and I'd say, doodle, 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 bug, 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 doodle, 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 bug, 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 doodle, bug, come out and look all around, doodle, back in the ground. That wasn't too hard. So, let's take a look at this. As we'll talk later on, the banjo started in Africa, came across here, olden times, 1600s. But, you know, white folks didn't really get into the banjo craze, and when they did, a guy named Stephen Foster helped that craze go right along. He wrote this song. He's America's first noted songwriter. There were plenty of songwriters, but he's the one we remember as being the first great one. And he wrote this little song that says, "Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I'm going to Louisiana. My true love for to see." 1848. What a moment. Well, I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. Rained all night the day I left, whether it was dry. Sun so hot I froze to death. Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Never heard that before. Part of the, you know, Austin, Texas has this motto, which is "Keep Austin Weird." I love that, and I think this kind of, you can see in these old-time songs what they're talking about. It's a strange, old, weird America, full of plays on words and twists, almost Alice in Wonderland stuff going on there. I jumped on board the telegraph and I scrambled down the line, but the electric fluid magnified and it killed that horse of mine. Old John Bus, the horse ran off and thought that I would die. I shut my eyes to hold my breath. Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. Come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Good. I had a dream the other night when everything was still. I thought I saw Susanna, she was coming up the hill. Buckwheat cake was in her mouth and a tear was in her eye. I said, I'm coming from the south, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. I'll soon be in New Orleans and then I'll look around. When I find Susanna, I will fall upon the ground. And if I do not find her, then surely I will die. When I'm dead and buried, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. Come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. When I was coming along, I heard a little song about a guy lived in the moon. There was a man that did the moon, and his name was Aiken Drum. And I don't know if you've ever heard that little song before. When I was playing in Scotland, I got to sing to some kids in a Scottish school in the north of Edinburgh. And they told me that Aiken Drum's like a little fairy creature, lives out in the fields. Some people say he does good deeds, some people say he does bad deeds. I don't know, but in this song that I heard a long time ago, he lived in the moon. And the weird thing about him was that all his clothes were made out of food. Food. So what I'm going to do, make this work, this old-time song, I'll name the clothing type, and you will volunteer the food. The basic song says, there was a man who lived in the moon. Well, I got to retune for this. Raise his or her hand and tell me the kind of food we should make the shoes out of. What do you think?
Celery.
Why not? Shoes were made out of celery, out of celery, out of celery. Shoes were made out of celery, and his name was Aiken Drum. How about his socks? Gotta have socks if you're gonna have shoes. Hey, you can't just yell out, you gotta raise your hand. There's a pledge. There's, like the kid in the back, right? Yes, ma'am. What would you like to make as... Yeah.
Blueberries.
Thank you. Socks are made out of blueberries, blueberries. Socks are made out of blueberries, and his name is Aiken Drum. How about this? Kids over there, they call these trousers, we call them pants. What shall we make his pants out of? Wait a minute, got to have some other kids volunteer. We'll get back to you. Yes, ma'am, what do you think? We're being healthy so far. His pants are made out of grapes, out of grapes, out of grapes. Pants are made out of grapes, and his name is Aiken Drum. But a belt, you gotta have a belt, otherwise you could have an accident. A belt, perhaps. No volunteers. Run out of food time? What do you think?
Spaghetti.
Yeah, all right. Creative. His belt was made out of spaghetti, out of spaghetti. The belt was made shirt. What do you think we ought to do? Okay, all right. Got a smart kid in the back. Baloney. Shirt was made out of baloney, out of baloney, out of baloney. Getting better, less healthy. Shirt was made out of baloney and his name was Amy Brown. Well, I can sing this for an hour with the first grade, but it's getting boring to me, so a couple more here. How about earmuffs? We got this whole bunch of kids over here, they haven't said anything. No ideas, huh?
We're learning.
We're learning, right?
We're learning.
How about, okay, yes, we've got an idea. And his earmuffs are made out of marshmallows, marshmallows. Earmuffs are made out of marshmallows, and his name was Amy Brown. Of course, you always have, when you sing the song, you always come to the moment where you have to make a decision. Are you going to do it or not? If we're here, we will. Out of what shall we make his underwear? I'm afraid of you, but yeah, what do you think?
I know you're ready. Cheese.
And his underwear was made out of Swiss cheese. Underwear was made out of Swiss cheese, and his name was Amy Brown. Well, there was a man lived in the moon, lived in the moon, lived in the moon. Was a man lived in the moon, and his name was Amy Brown. In the original, it said he played upon his ladle. But of course, I changed it. Played upon his banjo, his banjo, his banjo. Played upon his banjo, and his name was Aiken Drum. Now you can't say you never heard Aiken Drum before. I got to thinking, I was working a lot with kids in elementary schools, talking about American culture and American history as seen through traditional song. And I got to thinking, you know, kids lived on farms in the olden days. They didn't have fancy concertinas from 1910, and they didn't have fancy banjos, a replica of a 1920 banjo, and they certainly didn't have fancy guitars. What did they play that would have been inexpensive, fun, and cheap? Just the same as inexpensive. So I got a bunch of them. I called them pocket instruments. I stuck them in this little bag. I thought it would be fun to look at one of them. This is one of my favorites. These, I would hesitate. I bet there's some bones players in this very room. These are bones. They're cow leg bones. A lot of kids are distressed by the fact that I might use animal bones for music. I assure them that I only use the bones of cows that died in their sleep. I thought it was funny, but I didn't think you would. So, you hold one bone real tight. We're going to get along fine. You hold one bone real tight and the other bone loose. When you turn your hand over, it makes that nifty click sound. Go back and forth, and after some practice, it's not the easiest thing in the world. You can get a fast sound. Oh no, now I have to start all over. You're more than welcome. We're talking about old-time kids songs, and I got to talking about what instruments. I was playing a banjo and then a concertina. So what would kids have played in the old days that didn't cost much that they could find around farms? And these are bones. I'm going to try to play in both hands. I don't even know where I got these. They're just stained, still bone. So nobody knows how they started as a musical instrument, popularized like banjo in American minstrelsy, which began when a guy named Dan Emmett came out of Ohio in 1843 and formed a band, went to New York. Everybody said, wow, this is great music, we love this. And he'd just been listening hard to what folks were playing in Ohio, rural Ohio. And one of the things that attributed to him is this song, which says, "Get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper." You're too late to get your supper is your part, and more of that chorus if you want it. Meanwhile, I come down the New Cut Road, I spy the groundhog and the toad, every time that toad would sing, groundhog cut the pigeon wing. Get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. I probably sang this here last year, but also it's sung many different ways throughout elementary schools and campfires and all across, so maybe you know it a little differently. Old Dan Tucker come to town, riding another billy goat, leading of a hound, and the hound dog bark, and the billy goat jump, and throw Dan Tucker straddle the stump. Get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Old Dan Tucker, he got drunk, fell in the fire, and kicked out a chunk, and a red-hot coal got in his shoe. My good gracious, how the ashes flew. Get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. This is the bone solo. Old Dan Tucker was a good old man, and he washed his face in a frying pan, combed his hair with a wagon wheel, and died with a toothache in his heel. Get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Boy, you sound just like 1840s kids.
Well behaved.
So living on the farm, naturally singing about animals, there was a woman I met named Almeda Riddle. Almeda Riddle. She lived in Ozark Mountains. Had bunches and bunches of grandkids. Sang to them all the time to keep them entertained. And she taught me this little song. I love my little rooster and my rooster loves me. I'm gonna cherish my rooster by the Green Bay tree. And the rooster said, cock-a-doodle-doo, doodle-doo, doodle-doo. So you all get to be the rooster. Might as well practice this. Cock-a-doodle-doo, doodle-doo, doodle-doo. That's great. Now, normally what I do with this is I get a bunch of volunteer kids to come up to the front of the room and make a line of kids. And each of the kids has to decide what barnyard animal he or she will be. And then, in front of all the other people, make the sound of that animal. Right? Daunting. We won't make you come up to the front here, but I will look for people who would like to volunteer from their chairs to be a farm animal. And then, in front of all the other people, they will have to make that sound. Do I have a volunteer to start with? This could be a very short song. Okay, there's one. What kind of animal would you like to be? A farm animal. Good. What kind of like? Cow. If I read you correctly, it says, I love my little cow and my cow loves me. I'm going to cherish my cow by the Green Bay tree. And the cow said, and the rooster said, cock-a-doodle-doo, doodle-doo, doodle-doo. Next animal. People are shy here, except for you. Love my little pig, and my pig loves me. I'm going to cherish my pig by the Green Bay tree. And the pig said, and the cow said, and the rooster said, cock-a-doodle-doo, doodle-doo. You can see this is a cumulative. One after another. Looking for another farm animal? Might have one. Could possibly be,
Oh, what the heck?
yeah. What would you like to be?
I'm gonna be a sheep.
I love my little sheep, and the sheep loves me. I'm gonna cherish my sheep by the green bay tree. And the sheep said,
Bah!
and the pig said,
Oink, oink.
and the cow said, you let her do it by herself. And the rooster said, cock-a-doodle-doo, doodle-doo. Just like my first grade classes, exactly. They all try to do it. Okay, one final animal. Here we got a big farm. We have a fourth animal. Yes, what'd you like to be?
A duck.
I love my little duck, and the duck loves me. Gonna cherish my duck by the green bay tree. And the duck said,
Quack, quack.
and the sheep said,
Bah!
and the pig said, and the cow said, and the rooster said, cock-a-doodle-doo-doodle-doo. Well done. Thank you. Wow. Lord, I got another. This is maybe my favorite.
One more.
Kids played this forever. What we know in English is a Jew's harp, but only in English does it have that name, and nobody knows why it has that name. It's from Asia. Probably came over with Christopher Columbus. A Jew's harp, J-E-W-S. So it has many other names too, Jaws. I mean, it could be a mishearing of jeu, French play. You know, it could be J-E-U-D-G, whatever the Dutch is for kid. You know, it could be, but nobody knows why. In any case, it's all over the world, starting in Asia, and it makes almost no sound by itself. But when you stick it on your teeth, our hair, it makes a gourd out of your head and suddenly expands the sound. So the little sound, here comes that. Then, by moving your tongue and blowing on it, you can change the rhythm and the pitch. So here's a little song, probably 1900 or something. And Mike Seeger said to me, I heard him talk once, and he said, he's Pete's brother, he said, you know, up until 100 years ago, if you ever heard music, it was played by somebody in the same room as you. I thought that's stunning for us. We get music whenever we want it. So, you know, if you had an old fiddler in town, you'd make friends with him. You'd go over to his house. If your grandmother knew a bunch of old songs, you'd pay attention. So back then, people were so eager to sing and participate, they would sing this next chorus. But with today's sophisticated audiences, I don't expect it. It's all full of that weird old America that I was talking about. Joke songs, joke verses. And the chorus says, one little story that the crow told me, caw, caw, in a hickory tree. You can see why you might not want to do it. But carrying on, I'm just going to do a bunch of those old verses that I heard. Come gather round, people, and listen to my song. It's awful funny and it won't take long. All about a crow in a hickory tree. One little story that the crow told me. Caw, caw. One little story that the crow told me. Caw, caw, in a hickory tree. My gal took sick the other day. The doctor said she's going to pass away. I bought her a corset in the dry goods store. She's in better shape now than she was before. Caw, caw. One little story that the crow told me. Caw, caw, in a hickory tree. I had a sister and her name was Nell. And one day I pushed her down the well. Her mother said as she drew water, it sure is hard to raise a daughter. One little story that the crow told me, caw, 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 and a hickory tree. Take it, Joe. Okay, I will. Way down south where the cotton grows, Daddy went to shave, and he cut off his nose. He stuck it on upside down, and every time it rains, he nearly drowns. One little story that the crow told me, caw, caw, in a hickory tree. I had a gal, and she had red hair, and once she was chased by a grizzly bear. People thought she was out of her mind because she ran around with the bear chasing her. One little story that the crow told me, caw, caw, in a hickory tree. So I was practicing one day, and I inadvertently found out that this is probably the only instrument in the world on which you can say your vowel sounds. Should I do it?
Yes.
Sounds like this.
Sometimes why?
And why? But it comes out the same as I. Because you can't say anything else, because all this uses up all the front part of your mouth. But you can say the vowels. It just shows you that the only way you get differentiation in the pitch is by where your tongue is in your mouth. Great instrument. You know, and you can still get it for about $6.
What is it made out of? What is it?
Oh, this is, I've seen them from the South Pacific made out of bamboo. So there's just a slit in it, so you pull the flange of bamboo to get the same effect. But apparently Austria was famous in the Middle Ages and beyond for making these. I have a couple of very expensive Austrian ones. It's just metal with a metal flange. And you can see just a little piece of old metal. And
People would make them.
you know, what the question was, would people make them on their own? I thought so. I thought you could just go down to a blacksmith and he'd hack one out for you, and there'd be, but apparently not. Apparently the making of what they call a lamella, which is this twanger thing, takes some skill, and so not everybody could do it.
So was it an expensive somewhere like the kettlebell?
Yeah, by that time, by the 19th century, it would have been. Whether it was in 1300 or 1200,
But
I
it
don't
wasn't
know.
here then.
Yes, it was. Well, it wasn't here,
Right,
but
but
it was in the world. Yeah, it's, as I say, I think it came over with Christopher Columbus. Yes, ma'am. Oh, see it, yes. It's hard to explain what it is. It's true that you have to have at least one upper and one lower tooth in order to get this working. The question was one time they were made out of lead? Not to my knowledge. No. This tensile strength on this thing, the way it's connected to the frame, it can't be too flexible, you know, it would just bend. So, I know who came up with the idea. I can't imagine. Yet they say it's Asian. Great stuff coming out of there. Let's see what we're going to do here. Oh, yeah. I was at a folk festival in California a long time ago, and they had one workshop they were doing was for all of us who worked with young people ever in old-time music. And so there was a great room full of people, and one of them, the woman had the greatest job. Her job was to teach Girl Scout leaders Girl Scout songs to spread to Girl Scout camps all across the country. And I thought, wow, you know, because my partner, she went to Girl Scout camp in Missouri. She said they sang all day long. They sang for everything they did, for going to breakfast and going to bed and going to swimming, and it was just great. She loved it. She remembered it all her life, the community that it created there. So I talked to this woman, and she told me some of the neat songs that she taught. Do you know this one? It says, if all of the raindrops were lemon drops and gumdrops, oh, what a rain it would be. If all of the raindrops were lemon drops and gumdrops, oh, what a rain it would be. We would stand outside with our mouths open wide, going, ah, 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 ah. If all of the raindrops were lemon drops and gumdrops, oh, what a rain it would be. And other verses, like if all of the sleet were vegetables and meat, yuck, what a sleet it would be. We would stand outside with our mouths shut tight, going, But what made me love this song, she said, at a camp in Southern California, the girls had written this verse. If all of the flies was great-looking guys, whoa, what a camp this would be. If all of the flies was great-looking guys, whoa, what a camp this would be. We would stand outside with our arms open wide, going, How could you not like it? She taught me this one, maybe you know it. It says, way up in the sky, where the little birds fly, way down in the nest, where the little birds rest, with a wing on the left and a wing on the right, the dear little birdies sleep all through the night. You sleep. When the round sun comes up and the dew floats away, good morning, good morning, the whole world's away. You don't know you know this, but you know it, so get your hands up in the air. We're going to try it out. Good luck. Put your forms down and your pencils. It just says, way up in the sky, where the little birds fly. You getting this on camera? Way down in the nest, where the little birds rest. Good. With the wing on the left and the wing on the right, the dear little birdies sleep all through the night. When the round sun comes up and the dew floats away, good morning, good morning, good morning. So I was upstate in Colebrook or someplace, and I did that song for a bunch of kids, and the 6th graders heard about it, and they got me aside later in the day, and they wanted to know if I wanted to hear the 4-H version of that song. I said, you bet, I'm a collector, I love that stuff. It was gross. Truly, truly gross. So if you want to know what it was, see me afterwards. But I love that little song. The pictures that are over there, I got born into a family that cared about traditional music. Before I was born, my folks were lugging early recording machines around the country, around the East, looking for rural areas where people might still know songs out of oral tradition. And there's a picture, is it up there? Yeah, on the far right, a little 3-year-old kid, that's me. Take a look at that later. Talking to an old logger named John. And he taught my family this song. I think my father must have asked him what kind of songs he knew from upstate New York when he was a kid. He said, there was a frog lived in the spring. King Kong kitty, won't you tie me up? He had such a cold he could not sing. King Kong kitty, won't you tie me up? Kimo, Kimo, Kiwi, down yonder in the hollow tree. The mouse and the bat and the bumblebee. King Kong kitty, won't you tie me up? Hi-mo-ho, rippy-ticky, tummy-tiddle, soup back, penny-winkle, knit cat, sing song, kitty, won't you tie me up? I won't make you sing that whole chorus. But you can do the part that says, King Kong kitty, won't you tie me up? Say, King Kong Kitty, say that.
King Kong Kitty.
Won't you carry me out? Right, you got that. It comes in several times. Who's been here since I've been gone? King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? A pretty little man with his new shoes on. King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? Kimo, 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 Key, way down yonder in the hollow tree. The mouse and the bat and the bumblebee. King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? Ma-hi-la-ho, a rick-ticky-tummy tit, soup back, panty winkle, mid cat, sing song, kitty, won't you carry me out? A pretty little dandy man, said she. King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? With a striped back and a crooked knee. King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? Kimo, 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 Key, way down yonder in the hollow tree. Mouse and the bat and the bumblebee. King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? Beautiful. So the mouse went swimming out across the lake. King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? And she got swallowed by a big old snake. King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? Kimo, 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 Key, way down yonder in the hollow tree. Mouse and the bat and the bumblebee. King Kong Kitty, won't you carry me out? Ma-hi-la-ho, a rick-a-ticky-tummy tit, a soup back, panty winkle, the cat sing song, kitty, won't you carry me out? Well, the first time I ever did a school program, I thought, what am I going to sing for kids? And then I remembered that I had a little toy in my closet from when I was young, and I'd got it in the southern mountains. My father was from North Carolina. And I got it, and I played it, and it was great. The kids loved it, I loved it. Only later did I find, I saw the toy at Sturbridge Village at the museum, I saw it at Mystic Seaport, I was all over the country, way back when. When I went to England, it was all over there too. So, I brought the little guy with me. It was like this.
Yeah.
We call them limberjacks.
Yeah.
The English call them jig dolls. They're funny, and they're great. And his arms go around. So I'm going to sing him a little song, and I'll get him to dance so you can see the way he's danced for generations for kids. In order to let you see, I'm going to put a chair up here. And sing him a little song so he has a rhythm by which to dance. Yeah. Frank Prophet taught me this. He made my old banjo for it. I'll show you in a second. He said, I'm going down to Lynchburg town to tote my tobacco down. He was a tobacco farmer. Lynchburg was a town in Virginia where he could go sell his crop. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to Lynchburg town to tote my tobacco down. I wish I had a pig in the pen and corn to feed them on. A pretty little girl to stay at home and feed him when I'm gone. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to Lynchburg town to tote my tobacco down. There's 6 big horses in my team and the leader, sometimes he gets arthritis. Give him aspirin and stuff. Maybe he needs fish oil. 6 big horses in my team, and the leader, he is blind. And every time that sun goes down, there's a pretty girl on my mind. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to Lynchburg town to tote my tobacco down. Well, the higher up the cherry tree, the sweeter grow the cherries. The more you hug and kiss the girls, the more they want to marry. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to Lynchburg town to tote my tobacco down. Jeff Davis rides a big white horse, old Davy rides a mule. Jeff Davis is a gentleman, old Davy is sticks and stones make my chimney high. Keep that gobbler old tomcat from putting out my fire. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to town. I'm going down to Lynchburg town and tote my tractor down. Say again? How old is that song is the question. I would place it around 1870, something like that. I think it's like a lot of old-time Southern songs. It comes out of American minstrelsy, 1840 to 1890, 1990.
May I ask, how long did it take you to learn how to do that?
The question was, how long did it take me to learn how to play the little dancing guy? Including today? About 90 seconds. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I hope it does look different. It's the way I make my living. But it's a simple little toy. And you can still find them. If you want to go after them, Limberjacks is what to Google. Limberjacks.
I know my granddaughter came over to visit me. She was from Buffalo, and she had one.
Really?
Yeah, I was really surprised. They found, I don't know where they found it, but.
No, I mean, they're delightful.
Yeah.
They're great. I've never bought one online, but they can run anywhere from $15 to $50, you know, so I don't know. You just have, I used to be a musician in residence at a museum village in Long Island, New York. And the guy who made them for the shop, this was back in the 70s, the guy who made them for the shop made this one for me. And I busted about 10 pine ones, so I had one commissioned out of Cherrywood. But I don't know what his source was. And of course, being a folk toy, there's no set way to do it. And people just did whatever they wanted to do. But I love his rounded feet. I love his long arms given his torso. And the long stick helps a lot too. Huh?
What did they attach to it? No, how would these attach? Oh, I see.
Yeah. Everything's wooden pegs except the 2 screws that hold his arms on.
Amazing.
Little guy.
My grandfather was Irish and he came from Ireland, and as a boy he had one of those. Anybody the Jews are too, and he was from Ireland.
I rest my case. I love this banjo, and all my other programs is kind of the centerpiece of what I do, because it's such a great artifact of American history. I said the banjo started in Africa, so it came over here, of course, in the memories of people who didn't want to come here.
Wow.
It's astounding. Up until about 1840, that's why I tell kids when I see them in New Hampshire, if you saw this and it was new, it would be around 1840 and it would be in the hands of a black person in New Hampshire who was a slave, or maybe a freedman. Because about 1840 they got flat, they were gourds up until then. No frets until about 1880. Along about 1880, 1890, ship fitters used to start making them. The best banjos were made in Boston and New York. And they had a bunch of fancy metal things. They would tighten the banjo head, which was always animal skin. Nowadays, of course, they make this out of plastic, but they still kept the metal just to look good.
You don't tighten the head with those,
Not this, no.
on that one?
It's plastic. And not only is it plastic, but they started spray painting it so it would look like animal skin.
So you don't have to tighten the head on it?
No, sir. They kept the brackets because that was what they did in 1890 and 1910. But nope, you don't have to tighten it no more. But this one, you did. Although I've never had to do it. Frank Prophet, who made this, he was a mountain man, learned from his father how to cut down a walnut tree and turn it into a banjo. And this part here, he told me this was a groundhog was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yes, beautiful. Nice, sweet, soft sound. And because there are no frets, you kind of slide around till you get your note. Yeah, I don't try to do anything complicated on it at all. Here's a little song he taught me. when you go over to take a look picture, you'll see in the center of that long table, he's sitting there in his cabin in 1959 recording songs from my father on a big tape recorder, playing a banjo just like this. He died in 1965, and this is about the last one he made. He said, "Pluck old hen, pluck and sing, ain't laid an egg since way last spring. Pluck old hen, pluck and squall, ain't laid an egg since way last fall." She lays eggs for railroad men, sometimes 8, sometimes 10. That's not enough for the railroad men. My old hen cackled in the lot. Next time she cackled in the pot. Questions about that?
Is that harder to strum and to pick than regular pipe?
No. In terms of right hand, it's not any more difficult at all. It's just, you know, I would never try to do something up here because I don't know where the notes are. I have no way to begin to do it. So it's just a different kind of instrument. I do.
The bridge isn't so high. That's the reason that I asked.
No, there's no difference in the right hand, and the left hand is only sliding into your note. Play it when we get through. You can try it out and see what I'm talking about. Now, I mean, you know, when you think about it, what kids teach to each other is a real folklore. And maybe today, in some ways, it's the only still extant folklore. I was going past a playground once, and I saw some girls, and they were jumping rope. And he said, "Amy's having a baby. Her boyfriend's going crazy. How many babies will she have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
When you fall,
Well, okay, so give me some jump rope rhymes from your childhood. This is the domain of women and girls, you know. We know none of this stuff. But give me, you have any today that still working? Also the clapping games, tons of those.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but again, boys don't know these things. Why don't they? Because they don't do it. It's not in their culture. They're out playing football or baseball, and the girls are doing these very, very complicated games.
They wouldn't let us.
And they wouldn't let us. So, any more? Okay, isn't that a clapping one?
Yeah.
That's a clapping game.
Yeah.
Teddy bear, teddy bear. Turn around, touch the ground, right? Great. You know the Cinderella series?
Cinderella, dressed in yellow, went downtown to meet her fella. How many kisses did she get?
Whoa, really? That's a nice one. The great thing about folklore is, as the scholars say, it has continuity and variation. So you know it's the same song because it has continuity, but because it's oral tradition, it changes. So what I heard was, Cinderella dressed in yellow went upstairs to kiss her fella, made a mistake, kissed a snake. How many doctors did it take? Isn't that nice? And I read, could be apocryphal, I read an Oklahoma variant of it which said, Cinderella went upstairs to kiss her fella, made a mistake, on the way her girdle busted, how many people were disgusted? So there I was, talking to kids. I was in Hopkinton, doing a residency with a 6th grade, and a 4th grader heard about me talking about songs that kids learn from kids. And he came up to me and he said, I have one, and he taught me this, and I loved it. My mother gave me a nickel to buy a pickle. I did not buy a pickle, I bought some bubble gum. Neil, 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 bubble gum, neil, 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 bubble gum, neil, 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 bubble gum, neil, 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 bubble gum. My mother gave me a dime to buy a lime. I did not buy a lime, I bought some bubble gum. Meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum. My mother gave me a quarter to tip the porter. I did not tip the porter, I bought some bubblegum. Meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum. My mother gave me $1 to buy a collar. I did not buy a collar, I bought some bubblegum. Meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum. My mother gave me $5 to stay alive. I did not stay alive, I bought some bubblegum. Meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, 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 bubblegum, meow, meow, meow. Fourth grade. Now, normally, of course, now that I've done that, I'd make you all do it. But with a sense of mercy, I will not. But believe me, if you're ever in a situation where you got a bunch of little kids and you need something, that's dynamite. It's truly dynamite. It's great. Matter of fact, I was in a residency in Ohio out there, and I taught that to some second graders. 2 days later, I got word from the principal that the bus driver had to stop the bus and pull it over to the side, tell the kids to shut up, stop singing that song, because he couldn't concentrate. It really works. And not only that, I was talking to an 80-year-old guy, and he said his parents sang it to him in New York City when he was growing up, so it's got some age on it. And you think about it, how many kids know about porters today? What's a porter? You know, no? Porter, they worked on the railroad, right? So they would take you to your sleeping car, or take you, right? And buying a separate collar from a shirt. Love that stuff.
Have you heard the Susie Madison?
All right, the Miss Susie had a steamboat. The steamboat had a bell. Once again, there's hardly a girl in the country who doesn't know that. But I often don't do it because it's so rude. So how does it go?
Susie had a steamboat, the steamboat had a bell.
Can you clap it?
Yeah. You
Who can? Who can do it? With anybody? Stand up so people can see this. Come on. Stand up so people can see.
Miss Susie had a steamboat. Miss Susie went to heaven and the steamboat went to hell. Operator, please give me number 9. And if you disconnect me, I will chop off your behind the refrigerator. There was a piece of glass. Miss Susie stepped upon it and she broke her face. Ask me no more questions. I'll tell you no more lies. Miss Susie's in the bathroom, zipping up her flies, and bees are buzzing, and all around her. We're kissing in the dark. Hey, arcade, hey, arcade. I am a lizard.
Hey, the world's greatest instrument. I saw a street musician playing, and I thought I had to learn to do it. I got these out of my mother's kitchen about 30 years ago, and they've all got flattened. These are silver plate, nice heavy silver plate. And they're great because they're simple, cheap, fun, visual, up and down, like the bones. I've even seen old timers who will play the spoons like bones. Which you can do, it's hard to do. But this is great. What's the song can do says. Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight, come out tonight, come out tonight. Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight and dance by the light of the moon. As I was walking down the street, down the street, down the street, pretty little girl I chanced to meet, and she was there to see. Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight, come out tonight, come out tonight. Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight and dance by the light of the moon. I'd like to make that gal my wife, gal my wife, gal my wife. We'd be happy all our lives if she were by my side. Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight, come out tonight, come out tonight. Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight and dance by the light of the moon. Any questions? Well, you know, you've done very well. Matter of fact, the people at the office in Concord of the Humanities Council says, you gotta make people ask questions. You can't just do like a lecture, you know. One person said to me they require a minimum of 7 questions from any audience. Otherwise, you don't let the people go. But we've had more than that, so this is great, you know, this is just great. I figure we can end with this little song, which I adore. I heard it about 10 years ago at a Christmas concert. And when I asked about it, it came from Ruth Crawford Seeger, Pete Seeger's stepmother, who had done a lot of work with the Library of Congress. And she found this song in the black community in Louisiana, and it says, if anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. That's simple. Anybody asks, and good up indeed. Anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am. Anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. So simple, that's it. All you have to do. Anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am. Anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. Sometimes I hang my head and cry, my head and cry, my head and cry. Sometimes I hang my head and cry, tell them I'm a child of God. Anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am. Anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. Peace on earth, Mary, rock the cradle, rock the cradle, rock the cradle. Peace on earth, Mary, rock the cradle, tell them I'm a child of God. Anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am. Anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. Don't you hear that foot on the treetop, foot on the treetop, foot on the treetop. Don't you hear that foot on the treetop, tell them I'm a child of God. Anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am. Anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. Little cradle rocks tonight in glory, tonight in glory, tonight in glory. Little cradle rocks tonight in glory, tell them I'm a child of God. Anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am. Anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. Do I know any child ballads? Child, yes. Child was this guy at Harvard in the 1890s. He decided that these old folk stories in song form were real literature. And he made a decision to search out the oldest versions that he could possibly find. Not necessarily from the rural people, but in libraries. And he put together a collection of 305 of the oldest songs that he could find anywhere that had been passed down by word of mouth. He made a great book out of it. Yeah, I know bunches of them. Sometimes they were in England and they stayed there. Sometimes they came across to America.
Is Barbara Allen one?
I don't think that Barbara... 305 of them. I can't remember whether Barbara Allen... I think it is. I think it is. You know? Some of them were bloody. I got a Sir Lionel and the Elf Knight. I've got the two sisters. You know, two sisters get the same boyfriend, and one pushes the older into the river to get rid of her. And
most of them are sex and murder.
Sex and murder. So what's the difference between men and movies today? Or as my partner says, death and butts. That's what kids like. That's what they get from the old songs. So yeah, that's a different program though. Thank you all. Any other further questions? We'll dismiss. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Jeff.